You're hanging out after hours with Matt Anderson, presented by Inside the Gamecocks.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome in to this episode of the Late Night Gamecock Show. I'm so happy to have all of you here tonight. The Gamecocks basketball team is obviously, the men's basketball team, I should say, is obviously tracking towards a March Madness berth. The women's basketball team is continuing to dominate the competition. Back-to-back undefeated regular seasons in the SEC play. It's never been done before, I don't think. Maybe once, but I don't think it has. And, Don Staley has this thing rolling. Lamont Paris has this rolling. I see the Gamecock men's baseball team is up 7-1 right now. So we're all excited about that. But what everyone should be most excited about is I have Brandon Wallace, former Gamecock great Brandon Wallace. And, Brandon, before I introduce you here and get you going, I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So Brandon Wallace from Jackson, South Carolina, Silver Bluff High School. I was at your state championship game. I was a little guy. I was looking up at you as I was 5'5" at the time, ended up 6'3", so it all worked out somewhat on my end. But I was in Colonial Life Arena when you won that state championship. Brandon Wallace was consensus top 100 player in the country coming out of high school. 4 years at South Carolina, 1 NCAA tournament berth, 2 NIT championships, played professionally. I mean, what can you say about the guy? 3 20-plus win seasons at South Carolina, 2nd all-time in blocks, 9th all-time in rebounds, 3rd all-time in defensive rebounds, 2nd all-time in offensive rebounds. Cool, next generation stat. 1st all-time in defensive win shares, 2nd all-time in games played, and was a part of 80 wins as a member of the University of South Carolina men's basketball team. Brandon, did you know you had all those stats?
I did not. I appreciate it. Now I can take it back to the drawing board and tell my kids. Got to add that to the stat book.
Yeah, man, add it. I was actually surprised. I thought you had the record for most blocked shots, but it's actually Sam Muldrow, who I had to guard in high school, which was not a lot of fun. I played at South Florida. Sam was at Wilson. Obviously, Carlos is at Wilson right now. But now you're at Gray Collegiate Academy. You've won a state championship. So life has probably changed. I know you're a family man. You got some kids. Yeah. So what's life been like the last 20 years?
Oh man, it's been a whirlwind, man. I'm a father of 4 boys. My oldest is 16. He's about 6'7", and he plays no basketball. He plays football. So it's been good though, man. Life's been good. I'm enjoying coaching. I think it's my passion. I really love working with kids and working with the youth. So it's been good, man.
Dude, I'm so excited to hear that because, it's weird. My brother was a college athlete, and, for better or for worse, most people just know you as Brandon Wallace, the Gamecock basketball great. And, it's probably a weird transition because you played pro ball for a little bit, came back, and what was that like? You go and play pro?
It was a good experience for me. I had my first year right out of college. I spent some time with the Celtics, and then after that, I did the Europe tour, Poland, Turkey, Japan, Israel, Venezuela, Cyprus, a little bit of everywhere. I spent some time in the NBA. It was the development league at that time. It's now the G League. So I got to touch a lot of parts of the world that were different from Jackson, South Carolina, for sure. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience, some memories I'll never forget. And I wish I took more pictures. I wasn't a big picture guy, but I just kind of lived in the moment. But it was a good experience, man. I played for a lot of great coaches. Right out of school, I had the privilege of playing for Doc Rivers. Tom Thibodeau was on that same staff. And then some really good European coaches. Andre Ulep comes to mind, a Slovenian coach. He was kind of the coach that taught me the ropes playing in Europe and how to be a guy that stays on the roster over there. So I think it was really good, man. I'm really grateful for the experience.
Well, see, that's the fun thing is now you think about all these mentors you had in coaching, and now you're coaching youth right now too. What's that been like, coaching the youth, being around them? And I know times have changed. I mean, you talk about not having pictures. I mean, your kids would have smartphones and taking pictures of everything.
Right. It's different, man. I like to think I'm a lot different than the coaches I played for. I'm more laid back, and I wouldn't say as loud and as rah-rah as some of my coaches were coming up. I think the kids respond a little differently today. But I think the overall philosophy of basketball hasn't changed much. It's just how you deliver it and tailor it to the young people that helps them receive it, and that helps them allow themselves to be coached.
Oh, I think about that too. Like, especially when you played, I remember you could actually stroke it out to the 3-point line, and basketball's changed now. I mean, I know that, being 6'3" in high school is like, all right, well, you're going to go to the post because you're the tallest person we have. And I thought my basketball was stunted, but now, like, when you have tall kids that have athleticism, but coupled with basketball skills, it seems like the whole game is opened up for them now.
Yeah. I mean, if you look around, I think our class was probably the last class right before basketball changed. So now it's a lot of tall, skinny guys running around the NBA. Back then, that wasn't a thing. So I actually came out of high school. I played guard my entire life because I always wasn't this tall. I had a big growth spurt in 10th grade. So I went from about 6'3" to about 6'8". And that's when it started shifting for me going into the post. So I actually came out of high school as a guard.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, Kevin Durant came out in 2007. Like, you were just 5 years behind, man.
Yeah, I said the same thing. Giannis, there's a whole lot of guys that look like I look now that's playing basketball at a really high level.
Well, the good thing is, you got a 16-year-old who plays football. I mean, there's a lot that goes with basketball and football, just being able to have footwork and have mobility and, just using your body in different ways because – playing basketball, I mean, the ball might be up here, it might be 12 feet in the air and you got to go, maybe not 12 feet, but you got to go up and get it.
Yeah, I told him he's about one more growth spurt away from having to learn how to drop step and rebound the ball. So he plays free safety. He plays some a little bit of quarterback and he plays some DN too, but he got the physical part down. It's just getting in there and get the reps. But I support whatever he wants to do, so I wasn't really big on pushing him to play basketball. He chose football, and that's what we're rolling with.
Man, it's funny. I got a 1-year-old son now. It's our first. And, everyone's like, what if he's an artist? I'm like, well, my wife's an artist. That's cool. Like, if that's what he likes to do. Or, if he wants to go, play tennis, golf, or if he doesn't want to play sports. And my youngest brother-in-law is like 6'5". And when he was little, I was like, dude, you need to go play football. And he was like, football doesn't interest me. And I'm like, that's cool. And then he played baseball and he was a great pitcher and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. Whatever those kids like, man, we just run with it, support it and help them grow in it.
Exactly. I totally understand it, man. So I got a couple questions for you, if you don't mind. I'm not going to go rapid fire at you, but, it's kind of weird. 20 years ago, you were a freshman at South Carolina. You had that, tremendous start to the season, and then you are playing Memphis in the NCAA tournament. And now 20 years later, the Gamecocks are, only the second time since then, potentially going back to the tournament. Like, what kind of advice do you have for these kids that are experiencing something new?
I got to see it up close and personal Saturday against Florida. They got a really, really good group, and they play really well together, man. I think they check all the boxes. They communicate on defense. They're tough. They rebound the basketball. So just keep doing what you're doing, man. I think Coach Paris puts them in great spots to make plays and to use their abilities. And you can tell by the way they play this game, man. They have a lot of fun with it. They play with a lot of heart and energy, and that's what you want to see as a coach, and especially as a fan. I was very impressed, especially with some of the coaching decisions he made down the stretch. The 1-3-1, Florida looked like they never played against the 1-3-1 before, and that was big in winning that game. So I was very impressed. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, it was funny, man, because I was actually at a wedding on Saturday, so I was like that typical guy in the back, like watching the game on my phone. But I got to sneak away, and the announcers kind of talked about in that that 1-3-1 that the Gamecocks run, you really got to get the ball below the high post. You have to get it down there and you have to just make the defense react. Because once that happens, it kind of even has to drop down to like a 2-3 or maybe even man-to-man, depending on how scattered it gets. But Florida couldn't do it. And it was interesting. I think with Lamont, like you said, the way he coaches, I don't know if there's a bad shot in Lamont Paris's offense because they run the clock down, but it's not really by design. They're just looking for the best shot. And when they get it, someone's going to take it.
Right. And they step up and they make that thing with confidence, man. It was beautiful basketball Saturday. I was very impressed.
Well, it's funny because, you kind of came in when the Colonial Life Arena was just getting started. I mean, that might have even been a recruiting pitch that Dave Odom had to you, like, hey, look at this 18,000 seat arena.
Right.
But it's funny because a lot of Gamecock fans, it's been all over like the message boards and, that kind of stuff where maybe Columbia needs a smaller arena because they can't fill the CLA. But I've been to a couple games this year, and if you have 18,000, that's better than 12,000.
Exactly. I think so, man. That thing has morphed so much with all the scoreboard. They didn't have all those lights and, screens that you can watch the game on back when we was there. That thing just had a lot of numbers on it. There wasn't no screen up there. So, I mean, that thing, it's a beautiful facility, man. The fact that it's 20 years old and still looks new and up to date is impressive. I think the university is doing a good job of maintaining it. Even with women's basketball leading the country in attendance
every year.
Just said it. I still think 16,000 is better than 12. So even if we don't fill it up, I'll take the 16,000. It provides a great home court advantage, especially when that place is rocking like it was Saturday and most girls' games. It's a big help to our team. So I have no problem.
It's amazing, man. Like what Don Staley has done in South Carolina. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, to take it like you remember when you were there? I mean, they had a run to the Elite Eight. I remember with Susan Walvius, and then it kind of got stagnant. But now it's the premier place to play.
Right. I mean, we're pretty much the epicenter of women's basketball right now for the last couple of years. So it's exciting times here in Columbia, man. She's done an unbelievable job. I mean, unbelievable. What is it, 14, 15 conference championships now?
Something crazy.
There's something crazy. So kudos to her and her staff. I mean, she built that thing from the ground up, and it's continuing to roll, and it's going to continue to roll. So I'm very excited about it. It gives us Gamecocks fans something to be proud of too. So,
I mean, we're about to turn into a basketball school before you know it, Brandon.
Hey, I'll take it. I support all the sports. Whatever, anytime our teams do well, it does good for the city. I live here in Columbia, have for a while now, and it just feels different when the Gamecocks are winning, right?
Yeah, it's funny, man. I'm looking here in the chat, and Day says, I remember B. Wallace and his boys blowing out Tennessee at home his senior year. Bring that magic tomorrow night. Do you remember that game, Brandon?
We did. We didn't win a lot that year, so I definitely remember the wins. I think, absolutely. Absolutely. I think back then we were just trying to go out and win one. I mean, it didn't matter. We just tried to show up and fight. So I definitely remember that game, though.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because, I mean, you went to this way tournament. You played Memphis. And it's weird because I think the year before or something, y'all lost in Memphis. Someone lost in Memphis in NIT with John Calipari, but then y'all had those back-to-back NIT runs. And that one year, I'm trying to remember, Brandon, didn't y'all beat Florida 2 out of 3 times and lost in the SEC championship? And that was like the Joakim Noah year.
A tip-in, yeah, we did. I think that was my junior year. Yeah, it was my junior year. I lost to them on the tip-in. I think we just matched up with them well all across the board. And a lot of times in these situations, it's all about matchups. So that's I think we matched them pretty well. They were super talented. Obviously, they won back-to-back national championships, but we just were a good match for those guys.
Well, man, I got to tell you, it's so fun for me because, growing up, actually, I was a ball boy for the basketball team, like with BJ and Melvin and Larry Davis and those guys. And then my brother was actually a ball boy for you, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. And being a ball boy, it's so much fun because you get an opportunity to interact with the players and, just even rebounding and throwing a ball back and just watching, the guys go up and dunk and do crazy things. It's so much fun. It's been so much fun having you on here tonight. And, anytime you want to come back on the show, just let me know. We always want to get former athletes back. And if, you want to get Trey and you guys come back and we'll just cut it up one day in the summer and just talk about the good old days, I'm always for it, man.
For sure, man. For sure. I'll make sure I let Trey know. Yeah,
and honestly, Brandon, if you want to stick around, I'm going to have Alex Jones come on. We're going to talk a little bit about like the SEC regular season race, bracketology, all that. But I know you got 4 kids and a wife, and you might got to run.
Yeah, man. I gotta finish up some food. So I got some Chinese over here getting cold, but I'll probably be watching the show though. So.
Well, Brandon, we always appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, and it was so fun to relive some of the glory days of the Gamecocks, and we hope we got many more in store.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate you for having me.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right, take care, brother.
Yes, sir. All right, Phil, let's hit a word from our sponsors, and we'll get Alex Jones in here.
Hey everyone, this is John Weiss Jr. and I'm with the House of Hope of the PD, a faith-based ministry focused on homelessness in men, women, and children. We are so excited for the Evening of Hope Jeff Foxworthy event on March 11th at the Florence Center. For general admissions tickets, please visit Ticketmaster. And if you're interested in table or other sponsorship opportunities, please contact me directly at 843-667-9000. Thank you so much for your support. God bless.
Chicken cock originated in Kentucky, like so many other bourbons. And so the resurrection of it, Paris, Kentucky, that's the county seat of Bourbon County. So much of this whiskey was being made in that Bourbon County, put on ships and barges and shipped down Ohio, down to Mississippi, and got to New Orleans where it got distributed all over the world. And people kept saying, well, hey, I want some more of that whiskey from Bourbon County. And so that's how bourbon whiskey got its name. And chicken cock originated actually in Paris, Kentucky, which is today Bourbon County.
Well, we are back on the Late Night Gamecock Show. That was awesome to have Brandon Wallace. Anytime we can have a former Gamecock athlete come on this show, we always want to promote them and what they're doing in what's now the real world for all of us. But so we thank Brandon so much for being on here. And Brandon is doing amazing things at Gray Collegiate Academy, and I'm so excited for him to be able to mentor our youth in the state of South Carolina, especially Columbia. Right now, we have Alex Jones from thebigspur.com. For my money, the hardest working man in the Gamecock sports industry. Alex, how many articles did you put up over the last 2 days?
Oh, man, I don't even know. I mean, it's getting crazy around here now with tournaments coming around. You got SEC tournaments starting here in about a week, so it's just about to ramp up.
You got the combine, you got women's basketball. Yeah. You got some baseball stuff. You got press conferences. You got it. You got it all, man. So earlier today, you and I were kind of just hamming it up, saying, okay, well, let's talk about the SEC regular season championship race. Maybe we'll talk about some NCAA tournament stuff, and we'll get to all of that. And Alex's response was, if Florida beats Alabama, it's going to be a mess. Well, Alex, I think that Florida, either they've already won it or they're well on their way. So looking at it right now, let's just break it out. So Alabama now is 12-5. Florida is 11-6. And I don't think anybody else plays tonight that matters. Am I wrong there?
No, it's just Auburn and Missouri are tonight. So, I mean, Auburn technically is in it right now too. So, but
yeah, so you got Tennessee at 13-3. Alabama now at 12-5, South Carolina at 12-4, Auburn 11-5, Kentucky 11-5, and Florida now 11-6. So there's no way that Florida can win the SEC regular season championship. They've already been eliminated. They only have one game left, which is at Vandy. I'm gonna go into spoil the news for y'all. I think that Florida's gonna take care of Vandy this weekend. So Florida's probably gonna end up at 12-6. So we'll put 12-6 there. Kentucky has Vanderbilt. We'll say 12-5, maybe 13-5, maybe 12-6. Auburn has at Missouri tonight. Did that game happen?
No, they just started at 9.
Okay, they just started. So, I mean, Mike Morgan's been saying that Missouri's going to get somebody. I'm going to go on record because I'm going to keep doing this shtick. But they're going to get Auburn tonight. So, but even then, you only have one team left that could, or I guess, three teams. South Carolina, Auburn, and Kentucky can match Tennessee in the win column. So, Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you. You've been crunching these numbers for the last 16 games. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, so if you're South Carolina, it's just you control your own destiny. If you find a way to beat Tennessee and beat Mississippi State, I mean, you've won it. You're going to be number 1 seed in the tournament, and you're clinch at least a share, because if you tie, you still can claim the championship, regular season championship. So, and even if there's some things that can happen, even if you lose tomorrow night, I think I could be wrong on that. But, it's even crazy to think about. There could even be a 5-way tie for first place if some things rolled the way they could. And, it's just the SEC this year has just been wild so far. And, still got another week of it, and it's nowhere near done.
It's nowhere near done. And, one of the things that I was given advice a long time ago in reference to was let go of the things you can't control. And right now, like Alex and I can sit here and try and predict everything that's going to happen the rest of the way. And I guarantee you at best we'd be 50% correct. I mean, that's the way the SEC has gone. So the big thing that Alex mentioned is the Gamecocks control their own destiny. And it all starts tomorrow night at Colonial Life Arena. And Alex, you'll be there, correct?
Correct.
All right. So, Alex, you were also in Knoxville. What do the Gamecocks have to do tomorrow night to secure potentially a share of the SEC championship?
You got to match the same physicality that you played with in that game. You think about it, in the first half, Dalton Connect kind of got his points, but he wasn't a problem for you. And now that changed late in the second half when he went off and was throwing everything in, it seemed like, and kept them in. But the key to that game was for them defensively was Zakai Ziegler and Jonas Adu were really non-factors in that game. It was really Dalton Connect and his, I think it was 31 points maybe he scored that kept him in.
He had like 11 in the last 4 minutes or something.
Yeah, it was something crazy. So if you can do that, it's going to be really hard because, Tennessee's playing a whole lot better too. Zakai Ziegler is starting to get into form and all that. But, if you can do that, if you can kind of limit what they're able to do offensively. And I think when you look at South Carolina's tempo, just like they do with most teams, they match it pretty well with Tennessee. Tennessee kind of wants to get out and run. So if South Carolina can slow the game down like they have been doing, I think that bodes well for them. And you look at it too, Colin Murray Bowles at that time when they played at that point in the season, he wasn't really the player that he is now. So that's another plus for South Carolina. So if you can do that and do kind of what you did in the Tennessee game offensively, which was just enough and made the big shots at the end, things may roll your way. You never know.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think that it might have been you that reported this. It was either you or John. I know it wasn't Hale and it wasn't Tony and it wasn't JC, but Miles Studi could potentially be back tomorrow night as well. And Miles Studi did not play in Knoxville, if memory serves.
He did. That was his first game back off of that.
First game back.
Because he made those key free throws at the end.
Yeah. So, and that's when he did this. I remember now. Which is if the Gamecocks can be at full strength, Tennessee's probably gonna be at full strength. I mean, looking at this game right now, Tennessee has, pretty daggum good offense and a pretty daggum good defense. I think that the difference could be the people in Colonial Life Arena supporting the Gamecocks, because as we've seen, Colonial Life Arena has gotten pretty fanatical, pretty crazy. I wasn't at the Florida game, but if you just look, okay, there's no such thing as the transitive property in basketball, but you have South Carolina, who just beat Florida by 4 after overcoming a 10-point deficit. And you have South Carolina, who's already beaten Tennessee. And then now you have Florida, who just dismantled Alabama, who Tennessee did not dismantle when they played Alabama over the weekend. So it's one of those things where the transitive property doesn't always work out. But yeah, you can make an argument. I think I saw Tennessee's about 4.5-point favorite. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the game. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Jonas Adu, and he's been a top 5 player in the SEC so far this season. So if the Gamecocks can minimize him, potentially get him in foul trouble, Lamont Paris said as much in the Florida post-game press conference. He talked about, every foul that we can add early in the game makes free throws at the end of game situation a little bit easier, because you might know you have the double bonus. And South Carolina fans, we all remember, or South Carolina people, we all remember the end of the Georgia game where it was a double bonus for both teams with 10 minutes left, and the Gamecocks ended up losing by 5. So I think that the Gamecocks need to be physical. I think that they need to take it to Tennessee where they can, and continue to do the things they've done all season, which is force turnovers late in shot clock, maybe not getting in transition as much, and just let the crowd do what the crowd needs to do, and get you through those lulls in the game, get you through, if the Gamecocks get down by 7, when that big 3 hits and it's a 4-point game, let the crowd do a lot of the work for you. And Lamont said that the crowd played a big role in Florida.
Yeah, that crowd for the Florida game was the loudest it's been all season in there, especially when South Carolina made their run. And, Florida, especially once that 1-3-1 came out, the fans kind of rallied around that, and it was loud. And can't expect anything different tomorrow. It's going to be a great atmosphere in there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to make it. I wish I could be there, if nothing else, just to hear the crowd at Colonial Life Arena, because it's been so amazing. But I don't have the stats in front of me, but Tennessee has been a pretty good three-point shooting team. I mean, pretty average, at least, top third in the country, about 35%. If the Gamecocks can find a way to hit their threes tomorrow night, and I'm not calling for it, Alex, but I do think that this could be a BJ Mack game to spread the offense out, maybe hit some threes, and then that's going to be huge for the emergence of Colin Murray-Boyle, because we've had games where the Gamecocks have had BJ Mack and Colin Murray-Boyle both go for 15-plus points. And in those games, the Gamecocks have been very successful, because Colin does not need someone to clog up the paint with him in the middle. He just needs to be able to work. And if BJ Mack hits a couple threes, I think it's going to be huge. Zachary Davis, Jay Diz just said in the chat, let Zach Davis play Dalton Connect. What's your take on that, Alex? Do you think that Zach could at least cause some trouble for Dalton Connect?
I mean, I think he could. Zach Davis is physical enough. I think in that first game, he was on him a good bit in the first half. And, he's proven that he can guard some of the best in the country, or best in the conference so far. Going back to that 1-3-1, he's like the key to that 1-3-1 defense, with the way he can kick every ball that's around the perimeter, or with his length and all of that. So Zach Davis is kind of the key defensively, I think, for this team tomorrow.
Yeah, with that 1-3-1, the biggest issue with it is the Gamecocks cannot stay in that 1-3-1 for long spurts. Like it cannot be the predominant offense, because it exerts so much energy on defense. And I think the way that Lamont Paris would like for the Gamecocks to play is to kind of play that harassing man-to-man defense where every shot is difficult, and just try and almost wear the other team down on offense just as much as they wear them down on defense with their cuts and their screening actions and the way they move the ball. So I don't know if the 1-3-1 is going to come into play as it did against Florida. I don't think that's the way the Gamecocks are going to try and beat Tennessee. But, I mean, Lamont said in his press conference, I kept pumping them up, saying, all right, we're about to do it. If you guys can't get a stop, we're going to do it. So don't be surprised if it comes in, but I don't think the Gamecocks really want to have to see that 1-3-1 late in the game to get back into it. I think Alex is right. If the Gamecocks play their style of basketball, it matches up fairly well with the way that Tennessee plays. And, we talked about this before the Tennessee game, after the Tennessee game. It's almost a muck it up type game. Both teams are physical. Don't get it twisted with Tennessee the way that, they have, 67 possessions a game in conference play. So, they're going to try and push the ball, but it's not a crazy pace. It's not like, it's not going to be ridiculously fast. So we'll see what happens. I see Tropical says, not sure if you've talked about him, but in my opinion, Miles Studi will be a key. Yeah, so Tropical, we did talk about Miles Studi. He's going to be back, and he was a key in the game, as Alex mentioned earlier, against Tennessee in Knoxville. But the Gamecocks at the bottom line have everything left to play for. There's going to be no lack of motivation tomorrow night against Tennessee. There's going to be no lack of motivation against Mississippi State on the road. And, Alex, I think that brings us perfectly in to, bracketology. And Alex, you follow this daily now. So how many sites are putting out their bracketology now that it's March every day that you're tracking?
Just about. There's really like 4 sites that I look at the most that seem to be pretty close, and they're doing it. This time of year, that seems like it's almost hourly that they're doing it. And once we get in more conference tournaments, that's going to be more of a just every hour update type of thing.
Well, pump those articles out, Alex. Pump them out. So what do the Gamecocks have going for them right now when it comes to the NCAA tournament? They have a couple things. Their KPI is 18th in the country. Their strength of record is 10th in the country. If you average the KPI and the strength of record, that's good for 14th in the country. So a lot of people don't like the computer metrics, but guess what? Strength of record and KPI are a computer metric. There is nothing the Gamecocks have done on the court that say, all right, well, you only had, or you outscored this team by 6, so you get a KPI or strength of record of this. The predictive metrics are where Gamecock fans are not happy, but KPI of 18, strength of record of 10, KPI strength of record average is 14. Q1 games, Alex, this, Gamecocks are 3-3. Q2 games are 7-3. The one bugaboo right now is the Q3. And I think that's what's going to limit the Gamecocks' opportunity from being potentially a 3 seed. I think that if the Gamecocks find a way to win their next 2, win one more in the SEC tournament, they have an opportunity for a 3 seed. But the biggest issue you have right now is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the country that already have 13 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. And the Gamecocks are going to have a pretty difficult time matching that. So if you just do 6 divided by 4, you're talking about, the top 4 seeds, the 4 number 1 seeds, and then 2 of the 2 seeds that are probably already spoken for one way or another. But then you also have to factor in that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that already have 12 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. And quad 1 and quad 2 wins are just one piece of a larger puzzle that we'll get to. But when you look at the quality of wins that the Gamecocks have, it's going to be very difficult for them to stack up against these teams that might have 12 quad 1 and quad 2 wins and no quad 3 losses. That's where the Gamecocks are going to struggle. And, it's tough because all Gamecock fans out here kind of live in a Gamecock silo. And we know that, covering the Gamecocks, the 2 quad 3 losses came by a combined 6 points. So it's not like any of those losses were bad losses in the sense like, oh my gosh, the Gamecocks just didn't show up against a quad 3 opponent. They had a 17-point lead against Ole Miss that went by the wayside. They had, what was it against Georgia, Alex? The Gamecocks were up by like 8 or 9 or 11 in that game.
It got to double digits.
Yeah, it got to double digits, and then the foul stuff happened. And so the 2 quad 2 losses are by a combined 6 points. Now you start looking at other teams, like Clemson has 2 quad 2 losses. They're by more than 6 points. Villanova has 3 quad 3 losses, And it's not like the Gamecocks are competing with these teams in a silo, but the fact that Auburn beat South Carolina by 40 and they have 4 quad 3 losses it's kind of hard to get over that hump from a team that beat you by 40 and you have 2 less quad 3 losses. So I can see the Gamecocks, Alex, anywhere from if they win out, if they beat Tennessee, if they beat Mississippi State, and they get 2 wins in the SEC tournament and win the SEC regular season and the SEC tournament, I see an avenue for a 2 seed. I think that's the highest that could possibly go. I think that if the Gamecocks lose to Tennessee respectively tomorrow night, and then they lose respectively to Mississippi State, and they lose in the SEC tournament, I think the Gamecocks might be looking at anywhere from a 7 to 8 seed. So that's how fluid everything is right now when you look at the entire landscape of college basketball. And it's hard for Gamecocks and it's hard for Gamecock fans to look at it and say, well, we're going to be top 4 in the SEC. That means that we should for sure be a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament or a top 4 seed or a top 5 seed. It doesn't work that way.
There's more to the picture on that one.
Yeah, and I had this conversation with some of my friends the other day, and friends that I feel like I know they watch college basketball. I also know they gamble on college basketball, so they're looking at a lot of different things every single day in college basketball, and they got upset because I think it was it was Utah. Utah jumped the Gamecocks in the net, and what I had to explain to them was, okay, yeah, Utah beat a bad California team at California by 29 points. Well, they were projected to win that game by like 10 points. So not only was it a road victory, which the net, has a little bit of weight towards, but also they beat the metric. And South Carolina beat the metric by 4 points or 3 points against Florida. Mm-hmm. And all that was already baked in. So at 3 points versus 19 in a road is going to be a lot different in the net than it is for South Carolina when in a home game against a really good Florida team. When you look at the computer metrics, and it's tough because, Alex, I know you deal with this every single day on thebigspur.com, and I don't know how often you delve into these, this woods area of just people talking about the net, but the net is what the net is at this point. I think that it's much more like, look at the teams that are, 1 to 5, maybe even 1 to 3, and then you look at 4 to 12, and then you look at 13 to 25, and then 25 to 50. That's how I would look at the net. Like if you're looking at, why is this team ahead of this team? Well, it's probably this much. It's probably a millimeter difference in all of these teams from 26 to 50. So the net is much better when you look at it as just a sorting tool. When you have the quads, and that's where the Gamecocks are doing a really, really good job. 10-3 in quad 1 and quad 2. There are not very many teams that have a better winning percentage than the Gamecocks in that particular metric. Now,
that's not bad at all.
Is the committee going to weigh that metric more than other metrics? I don't know. I know in the past the committee has said, okay, let me look at your last 10 games. Well, if you look at the last 10 games, the Gamecocks are 8-2. That's pretty good. I know sometimes they look at, your road record. The Gamecocks are 7-3 on the road. They look at the road neutral record. Gamecocks are 10-3 in road and neutral games. So at the end of the day, that's why I put so much emphasis on KPI and strength of record, because that's how you wade through the net, the way you wade through Ken Palm, the way you wade through Bart Torvik, the way you wade through Evan Mia. The teams that the Gamecocks have played, they are more than passing the test. And in actuality, they have an A+, according to 357 other Division I basketball teams, to have an average of 14 in those two metrics, plus the 10-3 in quad 1 and quad 2 games. That's where I think the Gamecock fans have a gripe if the Gamecocks end up as a 7 seed when they have those 3 metrics that are in their favor.
Yeah, and when you look at South Carolina's resume, from here on out, they're not really going to have a bad loss unless, they play as a 1 seed and lose to a lower level seed. But even then, I think with the SEC this year, you're not going to have a bad loss because, looking ahead, these next 2 are quad 1 opportunities. Ole Miss tonight, I think they're 78. They lost, but they're right there. That home win's right there from being a quad 2 win now. But I don't see them now moving up into that top 75. But the resume is, I mean, like, I feel like the resume now at this point, I agree with what you said earlier. I think they're the best they could probably get to is maybe a 2, or excuse me, a 3. But I could see them getting to a 4 more realistically. Just kind of depends on how they do in the tournament and stuff. But whatever happens the rest of the way, they're not going to – I feel like, in my opinion, they're not going to – with the way the schedule shakes out, there's not a whole lot of damage they can do to the resume from here on.
Not at all. And if I'm a Gamecock fan, I'm pulling for a 3 seed or a 6 seed. That's really what I would prefer because, tonight, Purdue went to Illinois. Illinois is a really good basketball team, and I think that Illinois was favored by 1 or 2 points against the number 2 team in the country tonight. And Purdue went in there and won by like 5 points. I don't think any team in the country wants to have to face potential number 1 seed like Purdue, UConn, or Houston. And look, it's March. There are going to be upsets. I'm not saying that these 3 teams are guaranteed to be in the Final Four and run through their bracket, but if you can avoid one of those 3 teams until potentially the Elite 8, I think that's what you kind of want if you're any team in the country, not just South Carolina. Because if you're a 3 seed, you're matched up against, potentially the 6 seed, the 11 seed if you win, then you're matched up against, a 7-10, 2-15 type situation to get to the Elite 8. And then at that point, I think that's where the Gamecocks would want to be, or any team. Because like I said earlier, when you look at the net, I think outside of the top 3 teams, I don't think any Gamecock fan would have a problem playing North Carolina. I know they had a big win tonight. I don't think they're going to have a problem playing against Kansas. I don't think they're going to have a problem playing against Arizona. Not to say that it's not going to be a difficult game. It's going to be a difficult game, and you're likely going to have to run through another SEC opponent to get to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 this year, especially the Elite 8 and maybe the Final Four. But Gamecocks have done it in the past, and this is a different Gamecock team that the computer metrics never called up to, just never called up to them. And I think that, for all the Gamecock fans that get angry at these computer metrics, Colin Murray-Boyles is the best player on the Gamecocks in the preseason. And he missed how many games, Alex? 6 or 7?
I think it was 6, yeah.
Yeah, so he missed, let's see, let me just pull it up really quick because I want to be accurate. South Carolina here. His first game was the Clemson game. No, George Washington. So
George Washington,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Played a couple minutes against George Washington. They had to play big minutes against Clemson. So, at this point, you're roughly talking about 15% of the season that's not captured in any of the computer metrics at this point. And Colin Murray-Boyles is clearly one of the top 2 to 3 best players on the Gamecocks team right now. So, Gamecocks have been crushing Vegas this year. I don't know if you pay attention to that, but
yeah,
I think against the spread as an underdog, I think they've only lost 1 time, and that was the Auburn game. Maybe 2 times. But, if you're a gambling person, go ahead and throw some money on the Gamecocks because it's been very profitable. I think it will continue to be profitable. But Alex, man, really appreciate you coming on tonight. I know that you got another 5 articles to write tonight before you can go to sleep.
It's a big day tomorrow.
It is a big day tomorrow. I'm excited that you'll be there to cover this for all the Gamecock fans out there. You do the best job in the industry. Really appreciate all your hard work and everything that you put into this. And Gamecock fans are better for having read your material on a daily basis. So thank you for all you do.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, and we'll get you back on soon. Hopefully we'll get Brandon Wallace back on soon. Next week, I don't want to – you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and tease this. Eric Norwood is going to be on the show on Tuesday of next week. I got a commitment Monday. It's the Evening of Hope that's been promoted on this show for about a month now. So I'm going to be watching Jeff Foxworthy on Monday night. And then on Tuesday, we'll be right back at it, and we'll have Eric Norwood hopefully on the show. Talked to him about an hour ago. He's planning to be on here. So join us on Tuesday. It'll be a lot of fun, and there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about basketball-wise. Alex, I'm going to have to get you on again next week. We might have to do a double episode week so we can talk about the SEC tournament. And if not next week, definitely when the NCAA tournament comes around.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate all of you for listening tonight. I never take it for granted. All of you give me the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. and it means more than you'll ever know to me. So thank you so much. And the Gamecocks have a big one tomorrow night against Tennessee in Colonial Life Arena. I hope that if you're able to get to the game, if there's still tickets available, you get there. It's going to be a raucous environment, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be watching on TV right there along with 150,000 other Gamecocks. So we'll see if the Gamecocks can get it done. But until then, we will catch up with y'all soon. Have a good night. Bye, everybody.